Welcome to Cover 3 Press Podcast. I'm Justin Samara. As always, with me, I got Mason Riggs and Jake Ramsey on the other line. Today, we're going to go over a couple of Week 6 previews, as well as talking a little bit about Contenders, Pretenders, our projections for later on in the season. Before all of that, though, the Raiders, we had a little bit of news here on their bye week, so we're going to go over that. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, Josh. Doing great. Getting ready to start this off. Oh, I just got a little update, boys. I don't know if you saw this. Raiders Texans flexed to 125 Pacific, 425 Eastern in a couple weeks. So that's cool. Nice to see us get a little recognition, trying to put the good game in. NFL just doing that, just flexed us. That's pretty cool.
Okay, that's good. I wonder who's going to be calling that one. It's probably going to be if it's on Fox, it'll probably be Aikman and Buck, and then if it's on CBS, it'll probably be Romo and Nance, huh? So it's good. That's good to see.
Yeah, a couple good groups. Just good to see a little recognition and getting us flex. Usually, they only flex you if you have any chance of being relevant in the year.
Yeah.
But what also happened, during this kind of lame duck week a little bit, as Zay Jones, new arrival in Oakland from the Buffalo Bills. I believe we traded what was it, guys? A fifth round pick in 2 years from now? Is that what we did?
2021 fifth.
Yep. So Zay Jones, first thoughts. I remember Zay coming out a couple years ago. I know he came from Eastern Carolina, I believe. Yeah, over his 4 years, I know he notched the NCAA FBS record for receptions, 399, which is outstanding. And then he had the single season record when he was a senior back in 2016. He hauled in 158 catches. That was just ridiculous. Some other interesting thoughts. Gardner Minshew was his quarterback before he transferred to Washington State. So Zay Jones guy, that you guys remember him in college? I know he tore it up in the Reese's Senior Bowl as well. Just more of a possession receiver. But you guys familiar with his work at all?
Yeah, I remember him in college. I'm pretty sure he caught a Hail Mary to win a game against somebody. It was the distinct moment I remember. But yeah, he tore it up. He's highly rated coming out of college in a very star-studded draft class. And, they included Mike Williams, John Ross, Juju Smith and company. So, it was a very, and to be that highly rated among those type of guys is, high praise. And so I see why the Raiders, Mike Mayock went out there to go get him. And, the Raiders, struggling a little bit right now at receiver. I think he's a tall, athletic guy that can come in there and he can make a difference for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders just cut J.J. Nelson. They cut Ryan Grant. Vic Tabor had a great tweet that summarized pretty much since Gruden got here, the receiver turnover has been absolutely crazy. I mean, it's just people in and out every week. I think Gruden was kind of joking a couple weeks ago after the Colts game. He said, I just met my Z receiver a couple days ago, and he started and scored a touchdown for us. So the turnover is good. They're plugging it in guys, and it's gonna be interesting to see how he fits. I'm not gonna lie to you and say I watched a ton of him when he was at Eastern Carolina, but like you said, he had a big Senior Bowl game, and people were high on him coming out. So it'll be interesting to see if this change in scenery kind of helps him out. Tough situation in Buffalo. The quarterback play is just not the best, and for being a solid team, a team that we're high on, they're not exactly a dynamic offensive team that's getting people the ball in space. So hopefully this change of scenery kind of just helps them explode onto the scene and helps the Raiders fill in that void as a number 2 receiver right now.
Yeah, man. West Coast to best coast, and he's got some serious core strength. Remember that what he did against the Chiefs? He stood up with no hands. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, the levitation kind of went viral there. And talking more specifically about that Senior Bowl, he had like 6 catches for like 60 yards, and he had 1 touchdown. But, the crazy thing is he had a touchdown called back due to an offensive penalty, and then he almost had a 3rd touchdown, which he didn't catch. His toe hit the line a little bit, but he almost had 3 touchdowns in that game. Really stood out. Him and Cooper Kupp. You mentioned Mike Mayock. During the Combine, Mayock mentioned, I'm going to paraphrase here, his game tape is outstanding, Wins with subtle hand movements, physicality at the top of his route, continues to check all the boxes. Before his first run in the 40-yard dash, Mayock made it clear that he was hoping run in the low 4.5s, and he checked that box. He ran a 4.46 and a 4.48, and he mentioned him and Cup as the most dominant receivers in the Senior Bowl, which I particularly remember, and we all know how Cooper Kupp has panned out. So someone that's just really looking for a new chance. Originally taken in the second round, so a high draft pick, 37th overall. And something crazy, dating back to last year, not a lot of people really remember because Buffalo struggled and whatnot, and Josh Allen struggled with the ball. But last year Jones, I saw this stat line pretty interesting. Started 15 of 16 games for the Bills last year. Had a team best in receptions, 56 for 652 yards and 7 scores in his second year. So with a really below average core around him and a subpar quarterback play, he was able to get stuff done. And his 7 touchdown receptions were tied for second most among all second-year receivers last year. So, out of all the second-year receivers, I believe he's just behind Juju in that department. And then even more particularly, he really kicked it up in the end. He had 5 in the month of December alone, which was tied for the NFL lead. So he really started to turn up last year. This year kind of fell out of favor for whatever the reason. But, I expect this change of scenery to really help him. His dad was a football player, played with the Cowboys growing up, Super Bowl winning guy. So he's, used to the football lifestyle, I'd imagine. So, I really think he has a chance to be the Raiders' number 2 receiver the rest of the way. And, from a value standpoint, I was a little nervous giving up, a 5th-round pick. No one wants to give up capital. But, it's a pretty good bargain, honestly, especially with that last stat line that I kind of read. I just think it's really intriguing to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think one thing, too, you mentioned about his NFL pedigree. I was seeing a couple of Bills guys kind of mentioning that he's a great locker room guy, very mature for his age. So that's good to kind of continue to build that culture. But one thing I mentioned earlier, the change in scenery will be advantageous for him. But, Josh Allen and Derek Carr are like, honestly, polar opposites. And so I think Zay Jones fits a little bit more with Carr. Carr's really accurate, not
Timing.
exactly, he doesn't. Yeah, it's a lot more about timing, and that's something that I think Zay Jones will embrace, and it'll fit him a little bit better. Hopefully, Gruden can scheme it up, get him the ball in space, and kind of make things going. So, it'll be interesting to see, like you said, giving up that future 5th it could turn out to be a bargain if he becomes that second receiver, or if he kind of just falls out of favor like a lot of receivers have. It could be a little bit of waste, but. Interesting move by the Raiders, and we'll see if it pans out.
Yeah, I think, one thing's for sure. He's definitely, the second most talented player physically wise on that, outside for the Raiders right now. And, I just trust Mike Mayock's ability to evaluate here a little bit, we see the fruits of our labor of the roster turnover this year, which his handprints all over. Zay Jones is someone he had ranked pretty high, 4th overall coming out of that draft from the receiver position. And like he mentioned, just continue to check the boxes. And we kind of mentioned, Josh, you brought up a great idea, polar opposites, him and Josh Allen. He's much more of a West Coast type of receiver, possession with timing. Yes, he tested pretty well, but really he's not, that true deep threat that you really see. But one thing's for sure that you also touched on, he's going to work hard. Great locker room guy, and he's going to get his opportunity. Whether he does, what he does with it's up to him. But he's going to get his opportunity here with, how the Raiders wide receiver core is shaped up.
Yeah, definitely. So just looking at some other roster moves, as you mentioned, J.J. Nelson was cut. Is just big on his availability. I think one thing Vic Tafer mentioned was that. I think Gruden was kind of frustrated that he was kind of practicing all week and then all of a sudden couldn't go in the Colts game. So best ability
and last week
ability is availability.
Against the Bears. Practiced all week.
Huge, especially since Tyrell Williams was out. I mean, you got to be on the field. Gruden's been big on that even since way back when. It feels like 5 years ago when he cut Obi in just his second year. But that's just more of that thing. Gruden's a big guy on toughness, and So it's tough to see, especially because the one game he was in, he flashed against the Vikings. But then also Marcel Aitman, been on and off the roster. They re-signed him to the active roster, and then Lester Cotton, the guard from Bama, back on the practice squad. So more of that turnover, just tinkering with the roster more and more as Gruden's trying to. I mean, in Gruden's mind, you got to be thinking playoffs. I mean, obviously, looking at it, you got to take a step back. But in his mind, they're 3-2. Two big wins.
Just win 1 out of 2. That's all they got to do. Win one.
Exactly. You got to win one of these next 2 games and just kind of keep on trucking your back home for a little bit of a homestand. So, they just got to keep tinkering with this roster. And right now, the receiving core is so thin, but they're still making it work. So, let's see. We'll just see how it progresses through the season.
Yeah, these first 5 games were supposed to be so daunting. And if you told Raider fans they were going to be 3-2. Which we are now in, and we are all Raider fans, we're ecstatic right now. I mean, yes, we're not Super Bowl contenders. We know that. But let's be real here. We've taken several steps forward compared to last year, and really some hope's been installed. And it's a brutal part of the schedule, and they're just highly competitive, and they're above 500. And you know what? They pushed around those Chicago Bears, out physicality them, as we touched on, the previous pods, and they're just playing a real physical brand of football, and I'm just excited. I'm just excited like I was a few years ago before DC, got hurt.
Yeah. So, anything else on the Raiders? Got any other thoughts? I'm sure we're gonna get touch into them going into next week. It's just a little bit of bye week here, but
on the JJ Nelson, like you said, if I was in that locker room, I'd be frustrated too. If my teammate, really participated all week, seamlessly kind of. And, when you need him most, when your number one's out, you'd like to have that veteran guy be able to get in there, even if it is, on a snap count. And, I cutting J.J. Nelson, I just kind of stand by Gruden on that one. That's just a little frustrating, to see him scratched basically after participation all week.
Yeah, having that speed is just so advantageous. I guess they're envisioning Trevor Davis a little bit more in that role. He had a solid week last week, so it's frustrating when you got a guy with Olympic type speed, especially a guy that's just flashed a lot at times. It's tough when they don't have the availability. But honestly, it's pretty common amongst receivers like that. I think I don't know who said this, but they made a really good point. Fast receivers are like Ferraris, man. When they're on the field, they can be so enticing to have on your roster. But yeah, as soon as you have to put them in the shop, they can be in the shop for a while. So it's tough. It's tough with those speed guys. So yeah, but moving on to this week's matchups, the Raiders, as we mentioned, are on a bye. So we're going to go over a couple games here. The first one we're going to talk about, Rams 49ers. 49ers coming off a huge Monday night win against the Browns. 4-0, huge game in LA. This has got potential implications for the NFC West down the road. Rams, they've been the team of the NFL, talk of the NFL the last 2 years. So now we're going to see if they can, adjust it a little bit. They got some injuries. They look to be sputtering a little bit at times, but if they can win this game, they'll be back on track. What are you guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, as a lot of Niner haters would say, and I am a fellow Niner hater, but it's time to really realize this team's for real. They're 4-0. You can say what you want about the schedule, but you play who's in front of you.
4-0 is 4-0.
And they can really run the ball. And it's going to be a tough battle this week against the Rams, who the Rams defense is kind of struggling as of late. But the Niners have their 2 tackles out, Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey, will not play on Sunday. So it's going to be interesting to see. And honestly, the biggest injury for the Niners and their run game is not those 2 tackles. It's Kyle Juszczyk, who's going to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. It's going to be very interesting and see how they're going to adjust their run games. Kyle Juszczyk, probably hands down the best fullback in football, really is so versatile in the ways they use him in motion and in the backfield and the slot and at the wing and stuff like that to really do different things in that run game. I don't know if they are going to, bring a fullback up from the practice squad or something, or use a tight end in that role. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter because they're not really going to be able to get that same production. So this is really going to see how Shanahan is going to be able to going to be able to, switch that run game around and get different looks different ways because they're not going to have that same power up front that they're used to having. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to do that. And, for the Rams are putting up points. Goff's throwing for 500 yards and all this, but they still don't look necessarily like, like this team's ready for a Super Bowl. So it's very interesting to see how their offense is going to come along. They don't look great in the red zone. They're not running the ball great. This Todd Gurley thing is just weird what's going on with him. And their defense isn't playing great. So this is a big game for both these teams. This division is turning out to be one of the best divisions in football this year. So, Shanahan and McVay, two of the best young coaches in football. It's gonna be a great game.
Yeah, if the Rams lose this week, they'll be a couple games back, but maybe insurmountable to get back in there. You mentioned the 49ers being for real, 100%. I get into contenders, pretenders later. They're not my pretenders team, but I did kind of want to put them on there just a little bit. Now, this could be looked as a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. But Jimmy G is just missing still a lot of throws right now, very erratic. Really struggling to find a consistent wide receiver out there besides Kittle. And then defensively, they've really just beat up on some really subpar teams, in my opinion. But you're right. You only play who's in front of you. Tip of the hat, they're 4-0. Robert Saleh is an up-and-coming rising star. But even with that, I just think I think you can run at D Ford. I just believe it. I haven't seen enough good running teams do it enough. But I think you can run at D Ford. And if you get the ball out quickly, you can do some things against that defense and really neutralize some of their pass rushing and their blitz packages, and then really try to attack that corner opposite of Richard Sherman. I don't know what the Cleveland Browns were thinking. They did not once attack that opposite side. For some reason, they kept throwing to Richard Sherman's side. And Nick Bosa is a stud. You know it, but really just beat up on Cam Robinson this past week. So I just really want to see what they do. Especially, I want to see that matchup, Whitworth versus Bosa mostly. And, the Niners got injuries with the Rams. Rams aren't playing so hot, as you mentioned. The run game really struggling. But I look for the Rams to really play a big game here and find a way to get a W.
Yeah, and one more thing that's worth mentioning today in practice, George Kittle kind of tweaked his groin. He's questionable. He should be playing. But if he doesn't play, man, those are like 4 huge components to their run game. And just further on the Niners, one thing that will be interesting to see about them is they've kind of had the lead in all of their games, and they've been so good at running the ball. I think they've been the best team running the ball in the NFL this year. They've just been absolutely gashing teams with Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson earlier in the year. So it'll be interesting to see if they get down. What do they look like kind of trying to climb their way back in the game, and they actually have to rely on Jimmy G a little bit. They haven't really had to do that. So if the Rams can get up early, that'll be interesting to see. And then one more thing is, Shanahan and McVay both came onto the NFL at the same time into both similar situations. And we saw the Rams kind of explode onto the scene. They go to the playoffs first year, go to the Super Bowl the second year. Niners have kind of been sputtering. So I think this will be a good kind of a benchmark test to see, where these two teams are against each other this year. Definitely a pretty interesting matchup in my opinion. So you guys got any more thoughts on that one? Or
Who you guys got? Pick a team. Who you got?
I'm gonna go with the Rams. I'd say that because the Niners, I think the injuries in the run game is just going to be insurmountable, at least for this week. And, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think they are going to get down early because they're on the road. And I think Jimmy G is going to have to start throwing the ball to get him back into it, and I don't think that he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, one thing I saw, I think Warren Sharp tweeted something. He said, besides going against Belichick, anytime Sean McVay has had over 7 days to prepare for a team, he is 10-0. So I'm just going to bet on that. And like you said, the Niners' injuries up front is going to be tough. I think it's going to be close, though. I mean, the Niners
coming off a bye is huge, though. Good point, Josh. That is huge. I didn't realize they were coming off a bye.
They aren't coming off a bye, but they did play Thursday night.
Thursday night. Yeah.
So they got 10 games, and the Niners just played Monday night, so they only have six days to prepare, and they got a travel day down here. So
it's kind of like a bye then with each team in that circumstance in a weird way. That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty bad break there for the Niners. But yeah, those injuries up front too. Put that all together. This is low key a must-win game for the Rams too. I mean, they dropped this one. They're 3-3, 3 games behind the Niners. So I think McVay figures it out, and the Rams win this one in a close one. What do you think?
What do you think, Ramsey? Who you got? Did you already say Rams?
Yeah,
Ramsey already won. You go. Man.
Oh, I already picked Rams. I thought. Oh, sorry.
You already
picked.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
I picked Rams before I kind of asked you guys. My bad, guys. But next game, Texans Chiefs. Shootout alert. Fantasy points. It's gonna be crazy. Get your stat tracker ready. But there's a lot of injuries for the Chiefs. They lost. They're down Fisher right now. They lost.
Chris Jones not playing.
Chris Jones, and who's another guard?
Anthony Hitchens is questionable, or he might even be doubtful. And then their backup middle linebacker Dorian O'Daniel's out as well. So if Hitchens can't play, I don't know who's going to play Mike for them. So that's an interesting thing to see. But this is going to be a shootout. It's the quarterback play at its finest. Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson. So I'm getting ready to tune in for this one.
I saw a crazy stat. They both have like 115 plus ratings right now or something. They're just going bananas. Obviously, we know Mahomes is, but just Deshaun Watson's really something special. Getting beat like a batting ram out there, just destroyed like a pinata out there, just getting beat up. But he's something special out there, man. The Niners could have had him, guys, when they took Solomon Thomas. Oof, yeah.
You could have had both of these guys.
That's a good point. Very true. That's a tough one. But Texans, struggle to protect Deshaun, but Chris Jones being out's huge. They still got Frank Clark. Who you guys got? Where's that? Is it in Missouri or is it in Texas?
Yeah, it's in Kansas City. And one great point is no Chris Jones. So it's going to be kind of tough. But man, Frank Clark's got to step up in this one because we saw with Deshaun Watson last week. He didn't get sacked by the Falcons once, and they put up 53. So if you give him time there, he's gonna slice and dice you. So they got to get some pressure. Frank Clark has not had the year that they were expecting for what they gave up to Seattle. So hopefully for them, he can kind of get going this week. Otherwise, I mean, they dropped this one, then all of a sudden they're 4-2, only half game above the Raiders. So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with the Texans in this one. I just think that lack of pass rush allows them to go absolutely crazy. It does depend a little bit if Tyreek Hill is going to be playing. I'm not sure. He's questionable as well. Mahomes, he has those ankle problems, so a ton of injuries on the Chiefs end. They need to get healthy, but I think the Texans are going to walk in there and get a little upset win in Arrowhead.
I think the Chiefs are going to bounce back this week. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. If you're a betting man, I'd probably take the over. But I think the Chiefs are going to bounce back. I think they, had a little bit of dose of reality last week against the Colts, and I think the Chiefs defense, even though they're going to get points scored on them, I think they're going to get a late turnover, and then the Chiefs are going to come out victorious.
Yeah, this is a real tough one for me, guys. Hard to imagine the Chiefs losing twice in a row. And, I just don't want to be a homer and just pick against them. But Deshaun Watson is special. J.J. Watt is special. They're banged up front. Deshaun Watson might have more time, as we mentioned. Frank Clark struggling a little bit. Chris Jones, maybe the second best interior player in football, out. So it's going to come down to the wire. And I'm just going to go with the young hot quarterback, not Mahomes. I'm going Watson, who's got more total touchdowns on the year. I'm going Deshaun Watson on this one. I'm going to take the Texans, and in a stunner, the Texans pull it off.
All right. Well, that'll be a very fun one to watch. But one that will not be a fun one to watch, the Redskins and the Dolphins. And the only reason we're talking about this is, honestly, we got the Texans, the Chiefs, the Niners, Rams, teams with Super Bowl aspirations. The Redskins and Dolphins are teams with first pick aspirations. And this is a game that is going to be played not to win, but to lose. Both teams are just going to be out there battling for the opportunity to have that first pick, honestly. And for the Redskins, a little bit of news this week. Jay Gruden fired at 5 a.m. on Monday. by the Redskins. So he is not going to be over there. It's going to be Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach and the former Raiders coach that filled in for Gruden after Gruden was traded. So Callahan just has a long resume filling in for Gruden's. But like I mentioned, you got the battle for the first pick in the draft. But one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit more long term, because I'm not going to watch this game. I'll be honest with you guys. If it shows up on Red Zone, it shows up. Otherwise, I'm not going to be taking a lot of time out of my day. But in terms of the future, the Redskins weren't coming into the season trying to tank. I think they're kind of tanking on the fly here, firing their coach. But the Dolphins kind of have a little bit more of the plan. So what team would you guys say is worse off in the future? Would you guys go with the Redskins or the Dolphins?
Wow, that is tough. I'm going to go with resume here. Dan Snyder has struggled and struggled and struggled. I know the Dolphins haven't been overwhelmingly successful, but embracing the full tank. My boy James Hardwick's excited. He's full tanked. He's getting tanked on Sundays for the tank, I'm sure. I think the Dolphins will be better off. It's hard to mess up 3 first-round picks. They're going to be high. Steelers are going to have a high pick. There's no way they're getting out of the top 10. So 2 top 10 for sure, most likely. 1 late from the Houston. I think the Dolphins are going to be the more successful team because, honestly, they have more chances to get better players. And both teams are bad.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Mace. I think the Dolphins are probably better suited for the future, at least the next couple of years. They got 3 first-round picks, 2 of them most likely in the top 5. So they're going to be getting, really good young players faster than the Redskins are. I would like to see the Redskins, play Dwayne Haskins a little more. I know they're saying a lot about his development and he's not ready to play yet. You probably only got to trust the coaching staff. But, I'd like to see him play a little more and him flash a little bit. But, the Dolphins just have a little more, capital, I guess, to get it going faster than the Redskins. So I think the Dolphins will be better than the Redskins in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so what about in this game? Who do you guys got?
I'm taking the Redskins. I wasn't going to go Dolphins. Because I was feeling the chosen Rosen battling out there, playing hard. They've been picking it up a little bit more competitive. And they played the Cowboys, relatively tough for a half. And I was going to take them. But I think, old Bill Callahan rallies them. Start running the ball with AP a little bit. AP finds the end zone once, breaks 1 long run for about 40 yards. And McLaren is having a nice year. He's back to full speed. So I'm going Redskins on this one. They find a way to get it done. I'm going Skins.
Sorry, guys. I'm not sick. This game is just fucking disgusting. But I'm picking the Dolphins here. Picking the Dolphins to lose because that's who really wins here, guys. The Dolphins to lose because that's who. I think the Redskins are going to end up getting the W because fire coach. Usually when that happens, teams are a little more uplifted and fired up. So I'm going to go the Redskins here. I think they have a little more talent, and I think Case Keenum coming back. I think. The Redskins have proven this year they can put up points. So I think the Redskins are going to end up getting this W. It'll probably be a close game, but really the Dolphins are the winner here because the winner is going to be the loser.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually go with the Dolphins. I think Josh Rosen comes out. I mean, Josh Rosen's not thinking about tanking. I think Josh Rosen's playing for his his pride at this point. He's kind of had a raw deal the last couple of years, and I think he's gonna come out. I think Preston Williams busts onto the scene in this one. I mean, I think he gets a couple touchdowns. There is a chance, though, that the Dolphins owner, GM, just tells Brian Flores, you got to do everything you can to lose this game. But I think Josh Rosen is going to come out firing, and I think they shock some people and they go ahead and get this dub on Sunday. So last game that we're going to be talking about. Green Bay Lions, NFC North showdown on Monday night. Lions are coming off this bye, and so it's going to be a pretty interesting game. You got 2 teams atop the NFC North. Lions a little bit of a surprise, but this is going to be a pretty good one, man. You always love it when Aaron Rodgers is in prime time.
Yeah, you mentioned that bye. Matt Patricia, defensive guy. Bill Belichick's so successful coming off buys. Maybe that rubs off of Patricia a little bit. And they find a way to slow down the Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur Green Bay led offense here a little bit. It'd be a nice surprise to see. Maybe beat up on them a little bit before the Raiders travel to Lambeau to see the Packers. This would be an interesting match. Matt Stafford's really making an attempt to push the ball down the field this year. I know that TJ Hawkinson is they're hopeful that he's going to be able to play, which is a nice piece for them. Coming off the bye, I could see them looking to utilize him. I know he hasn't been able to practice fully, but being in a limited capacity, maybe unleash that weapon a little bit. So I just want to see, honestly, if Matt Patricia can scheme it up and find a way to slow Aaron Rodgers down a little bit in this one. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'm a believer in Patricia. I like. He caught a little bit of heat last year, but I like him a lot. This Lions team is better than people think. They're 2-1-1. Really should be pretty much should be 4-0. So they're a very good team. They're a lot more talented on offense. People give it credit for. Kenny Galladay. What's his name? Marvin Jones Jr., Kerryon Johnson, Hawkinson, along with Stafford. That's a good offense right there. And so, it's really going to be more about their defense, I think, being able to slow down Rodgers. And, their defense played solid. They have a good secondary. So coming off the bye, a long bye too, because they have the Monday night game. So we'll see if they can slow down Aaron Jones after that 4-touchdown performance last week and see if they can get it done. And another side of this too, the Packers defense is playing very well as of late. Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, they're just nasty off those edges. They're getting like 1 or 2 sacks a game each. So the Packers are really benefiting from that pass rush because they're a little young in the back end, but because they're young, they're very talented. And they got Blake Martinez holding it down in the middle. So the Packers defense has really been a bright spot, as we've talked about in past podcasts as well. So this is gonna be I think it's gonna be a really good game. And Lions and Packers usually always comes down to, as you saw Aaron Rodgers throw that Hail Mary a couple years back. It's usually a very good game, tight divisional game, good rivalry. So we'll see. If I had to pick a winner though, I'd probably pick the Packers in this one at home. Monday night, Aaron Rodgers prime time. He's something special.
There's a chance Devontae Adams doesn't play either, boys. Don't forget about that.
Out.
Oh, he's out. Okay, yeah. There we go. So that's an interesting one. Go ahead, Josh. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. Give your take.
Oh no, that was actually the next thing I was going to say. Devontae Adams is going to be out, and that was something that concerned me going into last week against the Cowboys. But they were just able to run the ball all down the Cowboys' throat. The Cowboys have a really good defense, but so do the Lions. So I think one thing that the Lions got to do is focus on stopping that run and then kind of forcing the Packers into tough situations throwing the ball because they're limited in who they can throw to. But Aaron Rodgers is such a good quarterback; it might not even matter, which makes them so dangerous offensively. I'm gonna go with the Packers for my pick, but we'll see. I mean, it would not shock me if the Lions came away with a win on this one.
Yeah, in a bit of a stunner here, I think I'm gonna go with Detroit. Having that extra time, they appear to be the much healthier team. They do have quite a few people on injury, but Darius Slay was able to get in some limited practices, so there's a chance he gets back. Alshon Robinson, a couple limited practices. Deshaun Hand, limited practice. Quandre Diggs, limited practice. So at least they're trending in the right directions right now. And then looking at Green Bay, we mentioned Devontae Adams. Kevin King's being beat up. Tony Brown, another corner, did not participate. And maybe another sneaky guy that is out, I believe, for this game. I'm not sure if he's been declared, but trending that way is Darnell Savage, the young safety out of Maryland. And I mentioned Matt Stafford pushing the ball down the field. I believe he's top 5 percentage-wise. I believe like 20% of the time he's attempting a throw downfield. I expect the Lions to have a few wrinkles and to be able to stop that running game a bit. And I'm taking the Lions in this one.
Yeah, definitely. So that'll be good. There's a good slate of games this week, honestly. It's pretty exciting to see a bunch of solid matchups. And, there's even a couple that we didn't even get a chance to get to. But It'll be good to watch. So taking a step back, looking a little bit more from a season-long perspective. This is something that we were planning on doing a couple weeks ago, but now we have 5 to 6 weeks of information on these teams. So I think it's a good time to talk about our kind of contenders, pretenders segment. So we're going to each give a team. We're not going to talk about any teams that are winless or undefeated like the Patriots, but teams that are kind of in that middle range. 4-1, 3-2. Who we think is for real, who we don't think is for real. So we'll start off with our contenders, and I'll go first. I'll talk about the Saints here. The Saints, obviously losing Drew Brees, but Teddy Bridgewater hasn't lost a game yet. They got the Jaguars this week, I believe, and if they can come out of this one with a win, I mean that'll just be huge without Drew Brees. Sean Payton, elite coach. Their defense has just been balling out. Marshawn Lattimore, in my opinion, has been the best corner in the NFL thus far. So for right now, I'd say the Saints, especially when they get Drew Brees back, are definitely going to be my contenders in the NFL.
Moving on, I guess I'll give my contender. I just did a little audible, boys. I'm going with the Colts. Coming off a nice, stunning win last week against KC. They seem to really rally around Jacoby Brissett. People thought the world was set on fire when Andrew Luck would retire. But, he's done a really good job not making big mistakes. They're able to run the ball. And, they've been banged up really recently. Last week they didn't even have their star Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Darius Leonard, and they were able to slow down that Colts offense. A lot of it had to do with the running game. But still enough, they were able to hold up Mahomes a little bit. And then, T.Y. was out against versus the Raiders when the Raiders were able to pull one up. Raiders have been highly competitive. So, I like the Colts. They're in a division, a highly competitive division out there. But, I just think offensive line play is so key, and they honestly have a top 2 offensive line. So, I just think the Colts, they're just contenders in my view. They just have a chance to really build bricks and just stay ahead of the chains and not make mistakes.
I like that pick, Mason, especially in that division where it looks not as strong as everyone initially thought. And one thing I like to add is Marlon Mack's averaging 3.9 yards behind the line of scrimmage most in the NFL. So that's probably one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So he's really letting those holes develop, which is shown in the run game as they did last week against the Chiefs. But my contender here, boys, I'm going to go with the Packers. Obviously you got Aaron Rodgers, all-time great. If they can keep running the ball like they did last week against the Cowboys, and if obviously you can't expect 4 touchdowns a week from Aaron Jones, but that if they can get that run game consistent, obviously they have Devontae Adams who's missing time now, so they got to get him healthy as the season goes on. And it's really that defense that's really playing well. As I mentioned before, Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, they're just killing it on the edges for them. Blake Martinez, just a rock in the middle. And even a bunch of other guys I haven't even mentioned, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, all those guys are playing great for them. On the back end, too, Kevin King, Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage. So their defense is really, playing great. And that's really helping the Packers a lot. Aaron Rodgers mentioned that, before their Week 1 game against the Bears. He said, we've got a lot of great additions on defense this year, and he was really happy about that. He was mentioning how they got a lot of, usually the Packers is a type of place people go kind of at their end of their career, but he said they're getting a lot of guys in their prime, which really they are. So if this team can, hit, I'm honestly not the biggest believer in Matt LaFleur, but if this team can hit their stride and get hot at the right time, they can play with anyone. So that's my contender.
Yep. So those are our 3 contenders. Moving on to our pretenders. These are teams that, that right now they might be, first or second in their division, but we are not buying them for the long term. I'll start, and I will go with the Ravens. I think the Ravens got out to such a hot start. They were kind of the cream of the crop of the NFL. People were talking about Lamar and MVP talks, but I think they came back to earth, and I think this is a little bit more of what they are. I think they're just going to be a solid team. They could possibly get in the playoffs, but I don't take them seriously in the playoffs just because I think he's just not there yet. And I think he could get there, But as of right now, I'm not fully sold on Lamar. That's most of my reasoning on this one. They're going to have a good run game, solid defense. They got a good coach. But, for them to take that next step to be championship contenders or even contenders to get to the AFC Championship, I think they got to take the next step at the quarterback position. So hopefully Lamar can get there. I'm rooting for the guy. But as of right now, just not sold. So for contenders, for me, it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens.
Great pick, Josh. I really like that pick. Real worthy of that. Good eye on that one. A little jealous. I had a couple choices here. I was thinking maybe Carolina, maybe the Niners, and I circled my wagon around the Buffalo Bills somehow. I just Josh Allen is too up and down for me. I love their defensive mindset, and they can dominate one side of the ball. But I'm just not a believer in Josh Allen yet, guys. Just too up and down for me. Not a lot of talent on the outside. They got Frank Gore, who's just a beast, Hall of Famer. And they got Singletary, which is looking nice. They can run the ball a bit. But I'm just not sold on their outside skill players or their quarterbacks. I'm going the Buffalo Bills. And, they've got such a good record now. I just don't see them, really having a good chance of making it and winning into the Super Bowl with those two issues.
Yep. I got the Texans. Obviously, all the trades before the start of the season, kind of a lot of hype. And they are a good team, very talented team. But, if Deshaun Watson's getting sacked, he's on pace to get, I think it was 83. He's on pace to get sacked 83 times. That's just not going to win that way. They don't really have a true running game. Carlos Hyde's been playing well, but they don't have really that back they can lean on. They got, they got D-Hop and all those guys at receiver. Deshaun Watson, they put up 53 points last week, but I don't think their defense is enough to get them to win a playoff game, especially in the AFC. It's going to be really tough for them. I do believe in Deshaun Watson. The way they made those trades, they're in win now mode, but I just don't believe that they can, they'll probably get to wild card weekend and get beat 31-10 like they normally do. So it's going to be tough for them, I think. I don't think they're net ready yet. They're a team that, they're a few right players away from being a serious contender, but they're just not yet. And I don't know if that's going to take a coaching change or something, or I don't know, but they're just not ready yet.
Yeah, they need a GM, I think, for sure. But just wrapping this all up, it's gonna be a big week for the NFL. We're gonna find a lot more out about these teams, especially the 6 teams that we just mentioned. We'll get a better idea of what's going on. Every week you get a lot more information about these teams, and it'll just be a fun week of football. You guys got anything else?
Just a quick reminder, the Green Bay Packers will be on a short week for the Raiders, and they're coming off a bye next week, so that's kind of interesting to see. And I'm just ready for this week to pass to get some more Raider football.
Yep.
All right. So, go ahead, Ramsey.
No, I got nothing, man. I'm good.
All right. Well, just a heads up, we just recorded an NBA podcast. That'll be out on your guys' feed as well. So, as always, subscribe, rate the podcast. We'll get you guys another one up next week before the Raiders take on the Packers, as well as some more NBA content as that season starts to come. Other than that, I hope you guys had a great one. Peace.
Also, man, real quick, if any of you guys who listen to this, if you guys got, I don't know, in any of your own endeavors, a little clothing brand or something like that you want us to shout out, man, let us know, man. We got you guys.
All right, that's it. Later.
Peace.